Good afternoon, and welcome to a new episode of Malden Talks. Today is Thursday, May 14th, 2020, and today's guest is one and only Jerry Leone. Jerry Leone is a resident of Malden's Ward 6 here, and he's the chairman of the Malden Republican Party. Today, Jerry and I are going to talk about various issues about life under COVID-19, how it's impacting us, and then we're going to talk about some topics concerning how or what's happening with the new Malden Republican Party. But first, let's start off with an introduction. Jerry, could you please introduce yourself and tell us what's going on with you in general, day to day?
Joe, thank you for people who are tuning in that don't know me again. My name is Jerry Leone. I'm a former Ward 6 school committee member, 2 terms, and I ran for city council and councilor at large. And since that time, I've been keeping busy trying to regroup the Malden Republicans. The party has been actually defunct for 2 years. That's the last time the party was actually activated. And so I did a lot of thinking, and I said, well, let me, try to do my part into trying to rebuild it. And within our week, because this past April, we had a reorganizational meeting with just 4 members. We
Okay,
elected
we'll get into that. That. Let's talk about you first and what you're doing. I noticed you've got some very interesting skills. I see you do a lot of bottling and you have a lot of wines, and that sort of fascinated me because I don't know how to do that. Where do you learn those skills?
Well, I learned from my parents over the years, and their friends. My parents being from Italy, they have a passion of wine, and I learned from my older brother and just surrounding family members and friends. I like to, like you said, not only wine, but mead. That's a honey wine. That's the oldest alcoholic beverage in the world, mead, and beer. And I just, I thought about it. You just brought it up. I wasn't expecting that. So now that you say that, I have to follow our forefathers. Like, let's say Paul Revere, for example. He was a brewer and a politician as well.
Wow.
And just different patriots. So it's a hobby it's a fun hobby. I encourage people to try it out. It's a lot of patience. When I first started off, not every batch was good, but the key is sanitation. Things need to be sanitized.
Very good, very good. Speaking of families and hobbies, could you tell us a little about how your day-to-day routine's going now? How you're living life under COVID-19?
Well, I'm on currently, like some people, furloughed. My job, my full-time job is at the Four Seasons Hotel, where I've been there. July will be 16 years, and I'm one of the purchasers there at the hotel. I used to be in the security department for 4 years, and then since 2008, I've been in the purchasing department. We order all the supplies and the food for the hotel. And when I said security a few minutes ago, that's because I have a security background as well. I'm a former police officer in the United States Air Force Reserves.
Nice. Yeah, I'm currently facing the prospect of furlough myself. So if I get furloughed, I may be coming over and getting some of those secrets of winemaking out of you.
I know, yeah. I love showing people this, this hobby.
Okay, but let's get a little bit serious now. We have some broad topic categories here we'd like to discuss. We touched on it a little bit, but let me get your thoughts and feelings about the current situation or the climate with the COVID-19 that's impacting the city, the state, and the world right now?
Yeah, a very serious matter. It's something that we haven't, experienced in our lifetime. It's happened before in the U.S., after the turn of the century with the influenza. I first want to give all the elected officials credit because you guys, sometimes I wish, I wasn't in your position when this had happened, but you're doing the best you can. You, the school committee, and the city council and the mayor. You have to do what you have to do. I mean, you have to have your meetings. You can't physically meet with the rule, 6 feet away and having everybody near each other. So you're doing the best you can online, whether it's Zoom, video, or like an old-fashioned traditional phone conference.
That's true. That's true. So let's go on to another category. Just broadly, your thoughts on education these days, not just in Malden, but across the country. How do you feel, what are your thoughts on just education broadly?
Well, that's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. What caused me to run for the school committee the very first time, since I have no children, is I felt throughout the whole nation that I felt the government was too involved in our schools. Whether it's public school, private school, charter school, homeschooling, the parent knows best, and how to teach their children. And now we're looking at the situation where children are being homeschooled. And I feel bad for, I want to congratulate the students, that were supposed to graduate, and I feel bad for them. I have a niece that's a senior in high school, and she was going to graduate Peabody High School, and I feel bad for everybody. My heart goes out to them. But you're seeing a lot more people homeschool. That's why when I was on the school committee, I took the chance, and I was the only one on the school committee that voted against the Common Core. Now, I know a few years later, there's been research done, and I guess I may have been on the right side of that now when we go to speak to it. I compare this COVID to the Common Core. It's just not adding up. I mean, there's certain things, I know the governor has the date of May 19th. I think we need to start opening things and be cautious, move cautiously. There's a lot of people. I don't own a business. I know people who own a business, and for business owners, I feel for them too, but we can't start having, more dire things happen. We just need to.
You're thinking specifically in the schools?
Yeah, well, the school year is, what are you gonna do now? How do you salvage? How do you sell? That's the position you're in, being on the school committee. You're in a tough spot. If we could, do we slowly bring students back, or do we just say, okay, that's it for the year?
Well, I'm thinking because of the heavy infection rate of COVID in our area here in Massachusetts, the school year is done. Probably September at the earliest before we get students back in. But let's go on to another topic, unless you want to talk more about education.
Well, I feel, in another sense, I'm for school choice, throughout the country, and using common sense. Obviously, there are families who may not be able to afford it, but you should always, let your child go to the school of their choice, and nobody should tell you, otherwise. And there's other ways. There was always the talk about vouchers. I know in the past, Republicans in general always favored, vouchers. There's other things you can do, vouchers, or give families a tax break,
To go to the schools of their choice.
Yes, correct.
There's a lot of subtopics wrapped up in that. Um, no. If I stick my finger in that, I'll probably get burned. There's a lot of toxic topics in there.
Yeah.
So let's go on to another broad category before I hurt myself. Your views on open space and the environment.
Yeah. So this is a big, this has, like you said, this could go into subcategories, but broad in general, over the years, I mean, Republicans got a bad reputation that we don't stand for a
Hmm.
healthy environment. We like pollution, and I know, when I was running for office, I was hit a lot with I didn't believe in global warming. When people you say climate change, and people say, well, it's the same thing. I'm more of, the climate is changing due to, my opinion, evolution. I
So
don't think,
it's a philosophical difference.
yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, this world, this planet has had so many ice ages. Could an
Mm.
ice age happen again? Yeah. I mean, if it's happened in the past, you can't stop that. But I mean, obviously, I want clean water. Who doesn't? Who doesn't want clean water? And I don't want to walk around and see trash all over the streets. And I give Gary, our mayor, credit. He goes around and he sees something, he picks it up. And that's a basic thing everybody should be doing to have a healthy environment. I'm for open space.
It's good that you're clarifying those points of views.
Yeah, like a famous Republican in the past, Teddy Roosevelt.
Yes.
He was a big, we have a lot of the national park system because of him. He wasn't out there saying, "Yeah, let's throw oil into the ocean." Who I mean, that's silly. If you show me one person that's going to come out in the city and say they want dirty water, you know.
No one's going to say that. Do you,
Yeah.
do you find it fascinating? A side effect of the COVID-19 is we have much cleaner air in major metropolitan cities around the world.
Yeah, that's strange how that happens, because I see obviously people are walking around with masks, so that's like a
Oh, the
gray.
massive for the environment. But
Yeah.
isn't it interesting? I find it interesting that the cost of getting cleaner air is shutting down the economy. What do you think about that?
So are you asking me, the
Just,
clean
just,
air?
just your, it's kind of it's sort of a philosophical point. To get pristine clean air, we've shut down almost all commerce. We've shut down the economy. Is it worth it?
No, because we weren't having. Let's take a year ago. Obviously, the air wasn't probably as clean as it is today. You
Yes.
know, May
Mhm.
14th, and we didn't shut things down. There's been various viruses the past couple of years that when everything was said and done, killed more people, and nothing was shut down. I that's another topic. That's something, that
So I'm guessing you're leaning towards some sort of middle ground where we keep the economy going, but we work towards clean air and clean water.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that could still happen. I mean, I think if you obviously keep, walking down the street. I see some people wearing masks and not wearing a mask.
True. Yeah, you're right.
I think, if to be on the safe side, if I was walking in the street and I saw someone approach me, if I didn't have a mask and I saw someone approach me, I'd probably, just to be on the safe side, because I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think it's really.
See, well, I'm in the same boat. I was walking around this morning, walking through the neighborhoods and the side streets, and anytime I pass someone, either walking or jogging, we make plenty of room. Sometimes I would step off the sidewalk just to walk around them, and they'd walk around me, always making sure there's a minimum of 6 feet between us when we passed. And it's an odd new social paradigm we're living in now.
Yeah, I'm hearing reports. I mean, my sister works in a nursing home. So
Mm,
obviously when she comes to visit my mother, she'll stand 6 feet away, doesn't really go near her. We'll put the items on the steps, and my mother will
yeah.
after she leaves. But there's different. It depends on who you talk to. It seems like the big debate in this country is Republicans want to open the economy and Democrats want to see it shut down. And I don't think that's a fair statement, because there could be people from both sides of the aisle that think differently on each thing. I just think my opinion, and like I said, I should have had a disclaimer at the beginning and said that my opinions don't reflect the Republican Party of the city, because as you know, we only count for less than 10% of the voting bloc, maybe 6%, and the majority of the Republicans come from Ward 6 and 8. I did that research on that, and so I don't want to make these comments and then people say, well, this is what Republicans think. I think the numbers are skewed in the hospital. Don't get me wrong. This is a serious.
Mhm.
This is if people are listening, or when you rebroadcast this, it's serious. Like me personally, I know a few people who have passed away recently.
Oh, that's serious.
I know someone, a couple of them were elderly, but again, they're saying that if you're a healthy person and you have no underlying issues, the survival rate is 98%. Now, if you're an elderly person and you have complications and you get it, will you necessarily die? You can, but there's reports in the hospital of people that are over 100 years old that had it and now survived. I know people younger than me that got it, and they were tested positive, and then 2 weeks later it was gone, and they were younger than me and healthy. So, but the people who I know that passed away were elderly, and they must have had underlining
Hmm.
health issues. Like someone I know that was younger than me had when he was little, he had a tumor most of his life, and it
Hmm.
just came back, and then he passed. But they're counting. Sometimes they're counting people at the hospital, that don't have it, and that could be a debate too, because there'll people that'll see this and say that's not the case, and it goes beyond that. You
Yes,
can
somehow I think we'll never really know the actual number.
yeah
Real life is too messy.
you can take this down a rabbit hole, and it'll somehow come to the national scene between Congress and the president, and what's
Mm.
going on. But we just need to open the economy. If we have to do it slowly, then fine, but we can't continue closing things, in my opinion.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned the term fair. Let's talk about another topic, fair housing. What's your opinion and feelings on the concept of fair housing?
Well, that's a good. I'm glad you brought that up. So, as you know, last year when I ran and the issue of housing came, there were people who stood for housing for low income.
Hmm.
Malden takes the brunt of this, and I don't know why we're the only community that does this. We have surrounding communities that have a commuter rail. You don't see the town of Winchester or all
Hmm.
these other places inviting people in. It seems to be Malden. So I ran on affordable housing for seniors and veterans, and then I got slack for that because I didn't include low income. So now, to use common sense and the situation we're in, you know, there's people who pay rent that can't pay rent, and then you have people who are landlords that can't collect rent because their tenants don't have money to do that. So I say use common sense and make it a combination of all three. Fair housing for low income seniors and veterans, but maybe veterans maybe go first, like when you take a test or something, because at least you're going to do something for them because they fought for this country.
In
And
my opinion, that sounds like more of a legislative move if the if the city government has the will to do that, because the way I'm seeing it is we're on the commuter rail and we're at the end of the orange line, and we're so physically close to downtown Boston. We might as Malden might as well be a neighborhood of Boston, because it's more advantageous for landlords to create luxury apartments here in Malden than any affordable housing. I don't see the money in it. What do you think?
yeah, you touched upon that. It seems, I mean, that's probably the main reason why the Orange Line was created in the first place in the 70s. People were moving out of Boston,
Mm,
coming north. But if that's the case, you have certain cities and towns north of us, property value is higher and rent is higher, but you don't see those communities dealing with, the low housing stuff in this debate. And that's Malden. Malden's overcrowded as it is with all these new apartments coming in.
I
You
don't
know,
see any end. I don't see any end in sight. You're right. It's going to be a big problem, and I think the density of the housing is just going to keep going up.
and that's going to keep, you being on the school committee. One thing I don't know if you faced this yet because you just got on, but well, you can't do it now because there's no one in the school. But a lot of things that was said to me when I was on, where I had parents come up to me complaining, saying that the classrooms are overcrowded. And I would say, well, you can't have it both ways. You have to get involved in elections and vote for people who don't favor this, because of course people move in, they bring in children, the children are going to go to the school, and that's going to eventually choke out the life of different programs we have in the city, fire stations, police officers, firefighters, just different things eventually.
Yeah, I think at some point there's going to be a leveling. I'm not sure how yet. When I say leveling, I mean because property values are going so high, I'm getting the impression that fewer families are willing to move into Malden, and they're being pushed further out into the suburbs where they can get cheaper housing. So there's a weird balance that's taking place.
Yeah,
Um, so if families start moving, more new families leave Malden and go further out, we're going to have an issue at some point with the population in the schools. It seems like the population is right now is built of legacy, a lot of existing families that were already here before the housing values started skyrocketing. Because a lot of these apartment complexes, they have um, there are a lot of single people, a lot of childless couples, a lot of transient people who are only here for a short while. It's a very different situation. But
that's what the word I was looking for. A transient. Yeah, correct.
yes, yes,
They were just they weren't built for, like, families. They were built for, like, maybe a couple, and then when they wanted to start a family, they were gonna just get up and leave Malden.
that's what I think I'm seeing happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of beating that dead horse, let's talk about something I think you really want to tackle. Um, I think myself and a lot of people in town really want to know what's going on with the Republican Party in Malden. If you could give us an overview and some information about anything. I don't even know where to start. What is the Malden Republican Party? What is it trying to doing, and what do you hope to accomplish over time?
Very good question. Glad you brought that up. So we had just reformed, and when I started mentioning before, we reformed. Our goal is to bring in people to the party and I don't want to use the word, I don't want to say breed. That's not a groom them to possibly run for office, because as you know, right now, we have one registered Republican in office, and that's, one of the counselor at large, Craig Spatafora. When I was in office in my 4 years, there were, as far as I know, 3 Republicans, myself, former at-large counselor David D'Arcangelo, and Craig Spatafora. So Craig is the only one left. There may be other people that are unenrolled that are registered. I don't know if you're unenrolled.
I'm
But
unenrolled.
okay, so you may be the only unenrolled on the school committee. Maybe Mike Drummy, I think he may be. I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for anybody, but that's what I thought. But on the city council, I don't know. I think I know who's unenrolled, but basically the party is open to not only Republicans, obviously, but unenrolled voters. But the difference is people who join the committee that are unenrolled can't. Unfortunately, they can't become an officer in the committee and vote on things. And if it was up to me, I would throw that rule book out of the window. But that's by state law. I mean, we just began, so we're working on a set of bylaws. What happens is, if someone's asking the question, what happens when you don't have a set of bylaws? You have to go by the state bylaws. As you know, the person who's in charge of the Republican Party in Massachusetts is a gentleman by the name of Jim Lyons. He's the chairman of the Mass GOP.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He's, our governor is a registered Republican, but you have, like all of the parties, you have factions in our party. You have the staunch conservatives who disapprove everything that the governor does.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the moderates who like what he does. And you have people who support our president, and the people who are Republicans that don't support the president, they have the name of never Trumpers.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but I'm glad you did, because I understand that's a toxic issue within the Republican Party.
Well, it depends on who you ask. In our district, so obviously the Democratic Party in the city is stronger because Malden's a blue-collared city, and the new chairman. Congratulations to the new chairman of the Democratic Party. I don't know if you knew or not, is Councilor O'Malley.
Yes, I've seen the messages. I'm on the mailing list.
Yeah, so Adam Weldy was the outgoing, and Adam Weldy and I, we get along. And when I was on the school committee, I'll give Adam credit. He always seconded my motions, only to let me, talk about it on the floor, but never voted with me. And he always called me his favorite Republican. But we got along. So I hope in the future, Councilor O'Malley and I have, great dialogues. There's no need to fight. I mean, there's different parties, and there's a point for having different parties. People have their beliefs, and Republicans have our beliefs. So we're structured just like the Democratic Party. We have 2 people that are on the state committee. And in this district, as you know, like the Democrats, we have Malden, Melrose, Wakefield, Reading, Stoneham, and half of Winchester, I think, wards 1, 2, 3, and 8.
Mm-hmm.
So Winchester is split. The other half goes into the other district. This is the 5th Middlesex in terms of the state Senate. And as you know, we just had a census. We're going through it. The results from a census usually take 2 years to come out. So by 2022, the landscape of not only Malden, but the whole district can change. As you know, we have 3 state reps in the city, with Steve Altrino holding 11 out of the 16. and then Paul Donato, holds 4 out of the 16, and he has Medford, and then there's another girl. Her last name is Garabedian, who represents half of Ward 5, and she represents all of Melrose and part of Wakefield. So basically, and then like the Democrats, each ward has their own. So central. So going back to the party, centrally we have our officers: the chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer, and we added a director of communications to our e-board. And these elections are every 4 years. They go according to the presidential election. So my term goes until 2024, and there's no limitations. We don't have like 1 or 2 terms. We can.
You read my mind.
The previous chairman of the party is the current fire commissioner, Emerald Haskell, and before him was former councilor David D'Arcangelo. And so we have, each ward should have like the Democrats, each ward should have their own officers. Like for the Republicans, Ward 6 needs. I happen to be the chairman of the Ward 6 Republican committee, and we need a treasurer and a secretary, and this is what we need for each. This is very important.
You're looking for representatives in each ward in Malden?
Yeah, so in order, like the Democratic Party, in order to be so what is known as being organized is, aside from having the central officers, centralized power, all 8 wards need, again, those 3 officers. And if you fill those slots, now you have 24 people across the city, plus the main central body. You're officially organized, and you can take part. This is very important. You can take part in the conventions.
Really?
Whether it's the governor or the presidential. This is why the Democratic Party has a strong representation at the conventions, because I don't even know who the chair, treasurer, and secretary are for Ward 6 on the Democratic side. That's something, our names go on the ballot every 4 years during the presidential election. And since we just had, the next one is not this one, but 2024 again, we'll have the election. So anybody that watches this replay, if you're interested, well, no, I'll wait until the end for that. You may have other questions for me.
So right now you have no representation because you don't have enough people to represent each ward in the city?
Correct.
I'm not even sure if I'm asking that correctly.
No, you are. We have the main officers, the 5 officers, which makes up the executive board, and then the only ward that's organized is Ward 1, where we had 3 people sign the sheets that go to the city.
So then once you're organized and you have, say, 3 people per ward, that gives you a delegate, a voice in something else?
That gives us the whole committee can go to the convention.
To the Republican convention?
Yes, whether it's presidential or for the governorship.
Okay. I didn't know that.
As people join, I ask them. We I can't speak for the Democratic Party. We have dues, but they're not mandatory, because by state law, you can't force somebody to pay dues in this type of, it's not like, the Knights of Columbus or the Masons or wherever, where they have a dues, people either pay or they make a contribution, because we do have traditionally, and I'll just say this before I end this topic, but traditionally, when I was part of the committee in the past, as a regular member, every President's Day, the Republican Party has a breakfast, and they usually had it at Anthony's. That's a plug for Anthony's restaurant. We had every year on President's Day, we have what's called a Lincoln Reagan breakfast, where we have guest speakers and we invite all the dignitaries, and there's someone who reads.
You obviously couldn't do that this year.
Yeah, yeah, because we weren't organized. We just came back in April, so that's a target for
Ah,
February. So we have someone doing a reading for Reagan and someone doing a reading for Lincoln. So we want to. I'll close this portion by saying we want to try to, as things start to open up slowly, we want to do a cookout at the end of the summertime. We were shooting for Labor Day, but people said, a lot of people are away. We want to have it in the summertime if we can. And I came up with the name, since we already used up Lincoln Reagan. I'm calling this cookout. I used two other Republican presidents. We're calling this the Coolidge Eisenhower Cookout.
it's going to be tough unless you go later in the summer. Even in Boston, they've banned all large events through Labor Day, through the beginning of September. No 4th of July, no parades, no nothing. But I think probably towards the end of the summer, you could probably put together a barbecue, and I think that would probably work. On the assumption that all the social distancing thing will be a little relaxed by then.
Yeah, well, that's why, people wanted to have a cookout, and I said, well, wait a minute, let's let the committee decide. And I understand there's restrictions, so we're only in the planning phase and waiting for the green light. Obviously, this can't be. We still have restrictions. We can't have a large party. It may be limited if they're doing limited. Because I know, speaking outside of Massachusetts, Portland, Maine, I know July 1st. They're opening up hotels and bars, and the
Mhm.
bars and restaurants can only have not 50%, but a 50-person capacity.
Wow.
So I don't know in Massachusetts if they still, once we start opening on the 18th and go slowly through the phases, I don't know if that 10-person limit, if we still have that, may.
I don't think we have any details yet about what the rules are going to be after the 18th. But
Yeah, so we're gonna just plan it and then just sit on that idea until we're going to stretch it as late as we can in the summer before. Technically, summer ends September 20th. So we could have this, past Labor Day, but I think we want our target is sometime in August late, you know.
as long as the weather's nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So, so unless you've got something else to hit us with, you ready to say wrap this up?
Yeah. So
How about this? So how about you grace us a closing statement, some sort of message that you'd like to pass on to everybody and tell everybody about yourself and what projects you're working. Help usher us out.
okay, well, projects like you mentioned before, I love to travel, but obviously we can't right now. So I've just, as we're furloughed, I'm working on projects. I'm waiting to plant some tomatoes in the garden that I used from seeds from previous tomatoes, and they came from seeds from previous tomatoes. So I don't buy plants. I like to plant by seeds. Some people prefer plants. So I'm basically gardening and making wine and beer. That's my personal project. City project is obviously working on the committee. Anyone that watches this on the replay, if you're a Republican or unenrolled and you want to join, please contact me at, I still have the old email, Leone4Malden@gmail.com or 781-635-7070. And I'll
Is there a website as well you'd like to tell people about?
we don't have that's the problem. We have a Facebook page, but we have no idea. And I hate to say this, we have no idea who the admin is in. Facebook isn't really,
Oh, is it a Facebook page or Facebook group?
it's a page that started before I even joined. And I don't know who the current members we have now, they're pulling the old scarecrow routine of pointing, this person knows, and when you ask this person, they don't know. And I simply went on the page.
Let me put my hat on, my work hat, just to give you a little bit of technology advice. You can't do anything about that. That's a dead end. Because if it's a Facebook page that's owned by somebody's personal account, there's nothing you can do about that if that person is disappeared or dead or whatever.
No, then you know what, Joe? I think it's not I think it's a group. And I think someone previously that was a member before was the admin, and there's been no activity on the page until we came back and I posted a message. So I actually went on and posted a message. I'm the current chairman, who was the admin to this, and nobody replied. So when you put a complaint into Facebook, they ask you, is it due to harassment or bad language? There's no tab on there that says,
no, there isn't.
trying to see who the admin is.
So if you can't get control of that group, you're going to have to create a different group and just start from scratch.
Yeah, I thought about that, believe me, but then there's going to be some confusion and, two things. So I'll have to talk with the director of communications for the party. So that's basically, that's it on that part. And to close out, I hope everybody stays safe. Let's help each other. Let's look after neighbors and our elderly citizens across the city. Keep practicing. Let's open up, but let's be safe.
Okay, Jerry, that was really good. I'm glad you came on today to tell us about the projects you're working on and all the interesting things you're involved with. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to sign off today and tell everybody political discourse doesn't have to be nasty. We can all sit down and talk about the issues and how we approach different things. Because a lot of times, in my opinion, it's purely philosophical differences and there doesn't have to be any hate involved. And with that, any parting remarks before I sign off, Jerry?
Yeah, for people who are, I just have to apologize. My obviously I'm in the same boat as some people where we can't get a haircut yet, and my allergies are attacking me throughout this video, so it looks like I'm crying and I'm not. So I want to know that this was a very, very peaceful interview. It wasn't.
It's pollen season. I understand.
Yeah, I wasn't nervous, crying, and afraid and stuff. I just want people to know that maybe another time when I have a fresh haircut and I'm not being attacked by, I'm not being attacked by Democrats. I'm being attacked by pollen.
Well, I think the pollen loves your hairdo just fine.
Yeah, someone's gonna start the pollen party in Malden.
Okay, and I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in for another exciting episode of Malden Talks, and see you next time. And bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, Malden.